Just bring it up. We're about to go live.
All right.
Can you put it on the
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to yet another episode of Real Talk Radio with your host, Congressional Candidate Joe Collins, California's 43rd District. And I'm joined by two very, very special people. And the reason why I call them special, not because I know them, but because what they fight for. I have to my right Dr. Mello, and she is the founder of the Kingdom Warriors Foundation. And I have to my left Mrs. Amber Brandt, who is a computer network engineer, and she is the Chief Operating Officer of Kingdom Warriors Foundation. So let's go ahead and start with Dr. Mello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. So let everybody know who you are. Tell us a little bit about the organization. Tell us where you went to college at, how you started your career, how you got involved with the youth of South LA, because this is very important.
Yes, absolutely. So we started out in 2013 in Skid Row. Actually, I graduated from NYU, went to school in the East Coast for 13 years, and came back to LA. Originally from Watts, grew up across the street from Nicholson Gardens, and it was very, very, I would say challenging growing up, but that's all we knew. So leaving to go to get my doctorates, I went to New York to get my neurolinguistic programming degree, and came back in 2009, immediately after my son, my 15-year-old son, was murdered.
Oh,
And so that's where...
Out here in Los Angeles?
No, actually lived in Brooklyn. And I actually wanted him to stay with my family in the East Coast. We have my uncles here in South LA, and then my other family in the East Coast. And I thought it was safer to keep him in New York. And apparently, it doesn't matter where you are, violence is apparent everywhere. And so coming back here, I ended up through domestic violence and ended up homeless myself at one point in time. And so it was that era between 2012 and 2014, I really found what my purpose was. So we started a nonprofit in the streets of Skid Row with 11 homeless youths who did performing arts. So we focus on mental health and trauma and using music and film and theater as a way, as an outlet for young people. And that's how we actually unofficially became a nonprofit. So 7 years later, we have a lot of young people who primarily are foster youth who went through our program and now went to schools specializing in performing arts. So what now we want to bridge the gap with our community and really put in resources for our youth that will allow them to think outside the box. And it's always circled around our future, young minds. And no matter what we do, we have to mentor them and let them know there's more than what they see. There's some confidence.
So you yourself are a victim of domestic violence.
Yes.
How did that impact you? How did that impact you?
Well, I thought there was no help from there, and I realized a lot of funding for domestic violence was not there. So I ended up in programs that were not tailored for me. I wasn't an alcoholic. I was in an alcoholic program. I was in a drug rehab program. Wasn't on drugs. So it was a lot of misnomers that allowed DV victims to still be without help. So this is why I wanted us to create a new program that's tailored for not only domestic violence, but to really solve the homeless issue once and for all.
That's great. We're about to take a break, and we're going to get back into that, and then we're going to meet Mrs. Amber Brandt. Stay tuned. We'll see you guys in a minute.
Oh.
Okay. There we are.
No, it was on the screen. How did I do?
Huh?
How did I do? Was that okay?
No, yeah, it's good. This is free-flowing conversation, so it gives you the ability to express your emotions, in a manner that's real.
Okay.
But I write down the points so I can remember what to talk about during the show.
Hey, Joe, you wanna put your new password on your
My who?
Facebook? I can share it on your
Oh, I think it's capital S A L I A H. I'm gonna introduce you, and then we'll go into a topic. Capital C 07 money sign. No, we're about to get ready. No.
You can text it to me if you want.
Probably better not to share it.
All right, guys, we're back. Now, my other guest, Miss Amber Brent, Computer Network Engineer, Chief Operating Officer of the Kingdom Wars Foundation. Go ahead and tell us the audience a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. My name is Rampart Scandal, and like Dr. Mel Desire, I also come from a domestic violence background, fortunately. It can be a systemic. My family actually has a systemic of domestic violence issues. So when you come from that background, you're not healed, you tend to find it, throughout your whole life. So I married into that. I had 2 children. I tried to get out by re-educating myself. I was a stay-at-home parent, and before that, I was in the Army. I was supposed to be in Intel, but I went honorable discharge. Thank you. And then, so going forward, I went into computer networking and enjoyed it, but it just became very challenging because of the domestic violence issues that we were having. DCFS, I was naive. I went to mental health and learned the hard way. I had all the facts and evidence, and they're not about help. They're about Title IV money. They're with my son and daughter. So right now, yes.
So one thing I did notice about DCFS and other agencies like this is they are actually not a government entity. There are private businesses contracted to do the government's work because apparently the government is too lazy to do it themselves. But when it comes to DCFS, what are some of the things, what are some of the issues that you find, especially being victim of domestic violence, and then also when it comes to youth empowerment and youth homelessness that you find with DCFS? And we'll start with Ms. Grant.
Wow, thank you. That's a good question. There's a plethora of issues. So they guise themselves as a help. There's a head above them called HSS, is that correct? And they have listed all these fantastic resources for families: housing, furniture, free or reform classes, domestic violence classes. But they don't do that. What they do is that they do a screening. And if you are a married couple, then they try to split you apart. If you're a single parent, father or mother, they will rip the children from protective parents.
Very deceptive.
And our children, unfortunately, are ripped out of the safe home. Majority of children, 80% come from domestic violence.
It's a target, and that's what we have to address. A lot of the funding, federal funding that goes into incentivizing these kids makes it worse. So now you have these cases that are drawn up with so much false evidence just so the child can be removed for those federal dollars. And since 1997, the Adoption and Safe Families Act that was signed by the Clintons actually made that worse for the family. So they really didn't have a chance when DCFS get involved. Then it's really all about kids for cash, and that's what we want to address and stop, to have alternatives so families don't even have to go through that.
Yeah.
And the common denominator for a lot of these families are
The
either
Clintons.
their
Oh wait, I'm sorry about that. The Clintons is the common denominator for everything that has to do with children being taken away from their families and being put in the system.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Absolutely, and that's why
I
we
just
want
don't
to.
like the Clintons.
Oh, you and I both. I don't know who does, but at this point, we need to undo the damage that they have done. After the crime bill was signed, the slap on the wrist was the Adoption and Safe Families Act. So now we want to have the federal government to repeal these acts altogether. And that's really the ultimate goal for us coming together. And that's why we have united against DCFS and CPSS procedures. If they were forthcoming and really were helping families, we wouldn't even have an issue.
If Black Lives Matter, we wouldn't be having these issues either.
Exactly.
That's a different story. I think that when you talk about organizations like Black Lives Matter who allegedly fights for a certain cause, I've seen no shred of paperwork, no shred of evidence that they want to have laws repealed. So the fact that you're talking about repealing laws, I definitely like that because there are a ton of laws that I want to repeal, including the Carlin bill, including this one and a few others that the Clintons passed that incentivizes, pulling our children out of home and, pretty much the destruction and demise of the Black community or urban communities. So youth homelessness is a huge issue that we have in California. So I want to ask, what are some of the issues, because you are the expert, I want to know, what are some of the issues that, homeless youth face?
Well, primarily it's funding. Understand that the county has at least $33 billion in taxes, so they're whatever broke. These taxes are going into organizations like the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority that was created by the city and the county simply because they were blaming each other for homelessness. So in 1993, when they developed this organization, it was called a Joint Powers Authority, which had maybe about 50 or 60 employees. And almost 27 years later, now you have over 450 employees and increase of homelessness. So that is the issue of why we have the misappropriation of funding going into hiring staff rather than to actual services. And so that's why the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, honestly, it has to be dismantled. Because right now, when it started, it was supposed to alleviate homelessness, but apparently they have created their own island and where they are supposed to give resources for all of LA County. So they're a very important entity. And they're the only entity that receives federal, state, county, and city funding. So they receive a minimum of at least $850 million a year.
Yeah.
And with that being said, every $1 million could at least house 50 families. But instead, they would rather have 3 caseworkers for doing one job.
Yeah.
And that's where the money really goes.
So Dr. Brand, in 2019, the Los Angeles Greater Homeless Count showed that more than 4,000 transition-age youth experience homelessness on any given night, and it rises every 22%. This year, we have over 6,700 youth becoming homeless on any given night. What are some of the solutions you think that we can implement in order to cure this problem?
Well, as we touched base on, we are coming at this issue from a grassroots movement. We can't trust or I should say count on the government today right now fixing this. So what we want to do is re-educate our foster children, provide mobile schooling for them,
Yes.
lower the trauma, and also there are some plans in place right now with the foster care children for the federal funding to step in and help with the psychology and issues that they need.
Right. And mobile is important because the kids can't come to us. Most of the time, we have to go to them.
Yeah,
And that's
anxiety, trauma issues, they can't even get out of the house sometimes.
Yeah, that's good. So, Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority is a joint power authority of the city of and the county of Los Angeles, 93. They have over $400 million annually in federal, state, county, and city funds to help programs for issues like this. So we're going to take a break, and when we get back, I want to know your thoughts on this.
Okay.
We'll be right back. You guys stay tuned.
Hey, we're gonna put your password in real quick.
Huh?
We're gonna put your password in.
I went ahead and
Oh, you
redid it,
did?
but I don't even remember the password because I just switched it.
Oh, but it's good on your, you did it on your end?
Yeah, I
Oh,
did.
perfect.
I would have to actually get on there and look and like. look
No,
at the
that's all
keyboard.
good, as long as it's done.
Oh.
Is it
It's
the
my
volume?
Yeah, that was my was on
Yeah, Dr.
Right.
Mello got 3 phones.
I know. Yeah, this is the camera phone, and this is my regular phone.
Oh, you got one for a camera, one for a regular?
Yeah. Because
Jealous.
old.
You need another phone too?
I do.
Yeah, we're actually gonna get a new phone Monday. So
Yeah, this one's, yeah, it's
Yeah.
compromises.
this one last leg.
I would definitely recommend using your organization EIN to get phones and plans way cheaper. I have 11 lines on my phone. My bill is $930.
Really?
Unlimited everything. Yeah.
Okay, is it iPhone?
I have a Note 10, iPhone 11 Pro Max. I don't even know how to use this. I have a few iPhones, a few of these.
Balling to the point you don't know how to use it.
No, because I had to upgrade. You know what I'm saying? I was like, all right,
The
might as well buy
security in iPhones, just watch out.
it.
Yeah, that's why we have to stick with Androids.
Really?
iPhones are part of that elite system, so if you want to do slow.
Oh no, you got to encrypt it and take all of that stuff out.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. I encrypt all my phones to make sure I don't have any of that. All right, we're gonna get back with the $400 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, actually it's $800 million.
They changed it.
800, yep. They say 400, but they don't include the private and public funding. So they want to just keep it on that base. But I was at the financial meetings for Russell, so that's why I know they omit a lot of major funding. For example, Hilton Foundation
Same like
donated.
the hotels?
Yes,
Wow.
Conrad Hilton is a big supporter of Russell.
I can't.
He donates at least $50 million to them.
I can't talk about private funds because I don't have the data for that. But we can talk about all the public funds. Private funds is
Right.
something totally different.
The private funding is not it's not really important.
You gotta
because
cut that shit out of there. Don't put that in there. Just kidding. You can't really care.
It's live.
The
I'm actually gonna set this place up like a bar. You know what I'm saying? Like a bar.
Sure.
Yeah. Have a
Okay.
bar.
That'd be cool.
gonna have some wine spritzers.
Exactly. I'm gonna
But
have
not
the
the
alcohol
hard
behind me and
rollers.
stuff like that. It's gonna be empty bottles, but
Okay.
They're all gonna be Jose.
Well, they won't start out that way. They'll end
you know,
up
it won't start out everything. They be like, "Did you use campaign funds for that?" Absolutely not. I drink on my own. I don't need the campaign to buy my alcohol.
Stand by.
All right, we come back with $400 million. That's because Keith muted me. He don't want to hear me. Yeah, he said that's cool. All right, so $400 million annually, federal, state, county, and city funds for programs that provide shelter, housing, and services for people experiencing homelessness. Which is crazy that they have $400 million and we have so much homelessness in our streets in South LA that Democrats just seem to ignore. Are you a Democrat? Are you okay? Because I know how a lot of Democrats like to ignore that type of stuff. $400 million. So it's crazy that we have that amount of money, but we still have $400 million worth of people still living on our streets. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Miller, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's evident that something was wrong, so we have to follow the money. Along from LASA, the other entity that receives funding is Phil Ansell, the CEO of the County of Homelessness, and he receives up to $1 billion, and that includes the county funding. So between these two entities, they have already proven that they misappropriate funds. So what we have to do is redirect the funding with local investors, partnership with hotels. There are a lot of hotel owners that do want to do business, something like Project Rookie, where homeless individuals can have 90 days in a hotel room and then turn it into permanent housing.
Isn't that something that was supposed to happen with the homeless people in LA anyway? They were supposed to have somewhere to go?
It did, yeah, and the person who ruined that was LASA.
Well, they really screwed the pooch on that one.
Yes, and Department of Public Health was the other entity, and they are really awesome, the Department of Public Health, I can say that, because when COVID first hit, a lot of the homeless were actually housed, but once LASA got a part of those contracts too, that's when they started picking and choosing who they want to help, and that's why they had to come up with a statement on June 12th. Heidi Marston stated that they acknowledged systematic racism. The only thing that they failed to mention was that they were the ones doing the systematic racism. And so that's the first step in acknowledging the issues, but the next step is accountability.
Hold on, wait. So you said that they were supposed to house the individuals and they got to pick and choose?
They pick and choose. That's why a lot of African Americans stay out.
If you don't mind me asking this question, who did they pick and choose? Because we have a plethora of homeless people all over the place. In my opinion, it don't seem like they choose anybody. I know we had a rally to reopen California, and we asked the homeless people who were right across the street from City Hall, you know, set up shop, tents, whatever you want to call it, if they knew about the hotels that they were eligible for, and none of them knew anything about it. Now, this is right across from City Hall.
Right.
So who is LASA admitting into said hotels, if they are?
It's people who are closer to their friends or family. So, for example, if a distant cousin
Came into town, and
came
they
into
needed
town.
somewhere to stay, then
Right.
they can go stay at the hotels.
Absolutely.
But the people who are homeless on the streets can't stay in hotels.
No, and they actually drug them to the point where they stay out of their mind, so to speak. So if they're a heroin addict, they're not going to house them until they give them enough heroin. And this is something I witnessed myself for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So outreach and engagement is so important to have us do it, and that's the way that we can alleviate homelessness, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. And if we're able to just talk to the person and empower them, a lot of them just want people to talk to them and understand, rather than treating them like a bed number or a hygiene kit or something.
Yeah.
They have goals and aspirations. So we are a homeless engagement team, which is why we want to urge other entities to really work together and in their area to alleviate homelessness. We can do it, but it just needs some type of homeless education and real estate to put them in. Because LASA is not the all end all be all,
Yeah.
which is why the county and the city have no idea how to fix it. They say, hey, go to LASA, go to LASA. But if they're not,
LASA
they're
can
not.
use that $400 million to pay those bills, right? Because that's what they gave. That's what they gave to them for apparently.
Yes.
Mrs. Brent, let me ask you a question. This article came out on ABC News this year, last month, that homelessness jumped up another 12%. The highest, the nation's highest concentration of residents living on the streets, and we're a little over 150,000 people living on the streets. How do you feel about that, and what is something that you think the Kingdom Warriors Foundation could do to alleviate that, or even, you know, attempt to solve a piece of that problem, at least in the Los Angeles area?
It breaks my heart. That's an understatement. Before I met Dr. Mello, I myself would speak to quite a few homeless people. I want to hear their stories. And as she said, you really have to hear where they're coming from. There's just so many different tiers of homelessness. They're in their mindset. And I think that when we get on the ground and we speak to them, we can find a way to better facilitate their needs, because what we're talking about is that they can't be moved into a housing immediately sometimes.
Without supportive services.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what type of supportive services do you think they would be rapid fire?
Mental, drug,
Mental
treatment.
health, yes. Wellness Recovery Act. So if they're an artist, you give them resources and pair them with a mentor. Celebrities are a big part of actually changing that as well. So it could vary a myriad of reasons, but empowerment is
Very
secure.
great, organic.
All right,
Yes.
we're about to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about youth empowerment and youth trauma. Stay tuned. We'll be right back in a second.
That's my subject.
Okay. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Very informative,
Yes.
Mr. Joe.
Well, because I pull the articles up as you guys talk. When I get curious, I pull the articles up, and then I ask your opinion on it, because I know you guys can do something about it. I know you guys can educate the public on things that goes wrong.
Like right now, I mean, it's devastating, but myself, you know, I have a cousin that's in San Diego. She's in prison right now, but she's a meth addict, and there's this Hawaiian expression. It's called ho'oponopono, and it means that we are responsible for everyone we come across, including people walking the streets.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is. It's not your fault, but you just have, and of course, but you have to give that love and care to the best of your ability.
Right. But then also you gotta guard your energy too.
Yes.
Because a lot of that is being swayed, and
Yeah.
you have to know that some people are not there to really see you prosper.
Yes,
You know what I
that's
mean?
true.
Unfortunately. But right now we're on a whole different level, because I want to, from the ground up, as I said, I would say dismantle the police, but we cannot reform something that started from slave patrol. Okay?
Well,
We gotta be real with that.
The thing about it is, like, the cops ain't the problem. the lawmakers are the problem. Like and the reason why I say this is because we just talked about how the Clintons, they passed this bill, they passed that bill. The Clintons are responsible for a lot of laws that incentivize incarceration of people in their communities. So the cops have to follow these laws, right? Just like DCFS have to follow 42 USC, right? Because that's the law that's under the Health and Human Services. So until we start to dismantle the laws, dismantle the police department, it's not going to help us anyway.
No, but
Because it then
this is
put
why
the sheriff department in
we want to bring out the Fraternal Order and Professional Peacemaker Association, because these are the two entities that supervises law enforcement. And even Roger Mayberry,
But listen,
okay, is being quiet.
but Dr. King marched, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were beating black people. Malcolm X marched because they were beating black people.
Well, they want
They-
to go on.
They tore up Watts because it was beating up on black people. And one common denominator that all of these things have is that the legislators continue to pass laws that incentivize the mass incarceration of killing of people in urban communities, whether it's black, white, or Latinos. The cops have to follow these laws because they're contracted with the cities and the states and the federal government to enforce the statutes and codes and laws that are put in place to unfortunately incarcerate us.
But Joe, the problem with that is they don't even follow their own laws. It's just like the commandments. It's like 700 and something commandments, and people remember 10. Even when I ask a cop, what is the difference between a civil suit and a crime?
Cops and lawyers, they can't tell you.
Right, but they refer to a crime as a civil suit and don't want to even do a police report. Yet when I tell them what penal code determines that to be a civil suit,
See,
they don't
because
have answers.
statutes and codes are all civil. They're not constitutional.
Well, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Discrimination, I said nobody
Nobody knows that.
Nobody knows that.
Nobody
That's what
knows
means.
It says multifaceted. Bottom line, we need to know about our constitutional rights.
yeah, you need to know the Constitution.
Exactly.
As we the people.
See, because the cops don't enforce constitutional rights, they don't protect personal property. The cops enforce public policy. Public policies are statutes and codes. Statutes and codes are created by state, city, local legislators, and the federal government creates codes, but you have to contract into those codes. The statutes and codes that are created by mayors, city council members, or whatever, those are only statutes. And those are only enforceable until they're contested in court.
You see, but that's too complicated right now.
That just means it's not real. It's only real if you allow it to be real.
Exactly.
We'll talk about it again.
All right.
All right, you guys, welcome back. We are here with Dr. Mello. You know why I say that? Because when I was younger, they used to have I can't remember if it was a TV show or commercial, and they used to go, they call me Mello.
Yes.
You know what that is? You know what I'm talking about?
I've been hearing it since
Okay.
yes.
So we're here with Dr. Mello and also Mrs. Amber Brandt from the Kingdom Wars Foundation, having a great conversation. I know a lot of people are wondering, what cup are you drinking from? Well, this is a Joe Collins for Congress 2020 mug, and you can find this cup on the collinsstore.org, so make sure you check it out. Get your Joe Collins for Congress merchandise. Now back to you guys. Let's talk about some youth empowerment and some youth trauma. Now, youth trauma is it's like the yin or the yang to youth empowerment, right? The reason why I say that is because the only way to cure trauma is with empowerment. So let's talk about this. What's your definition of youth trauma?
Well, it's leaving the child to believe that that's all there is. Not giving them an option to think beyond the box. Communication is a major issue. If you don't exercise their brain in conversation, which is why a lot of times we have to break away from the digital and engage them in theater arts, building something, get their hands dirty, go on outings. If you don't have them think, that's sort of like never exercising a day in your life and expecting to run a marathon. That's why we have to prepare our children right here, right now, with how they can learn the way that they can understand, not by forced Western tradition of learning. And the funny thing is, a lot of celebrities here, they don't even put their kids in regular schools, not even private schools. They put them kids in something called freedom schools. Like, for instance, Jill and Jada and Will, they go on camping outings. They go in the forest and they learn about nature. And of course you learn math and science too, but it's unconventional way of learning. And that's how we have to do learning is a different way. So be hands-on, giving them options, like I said, creative labs, artificial intelligence, virtual reality. Those are the things that are cutting edge right now. And if we can empower them to do coding, and that's why these mobile in schools is the best way to do that, so we can have classes on the go, but these kids are constantly learning every day. Until that happens, they will always think that slinging dope and gangbanging is a way to go, but they don't really want to do that. They don't know any other way out, and that's where we have to bridge the gap and say, no, there are other ways. And so I want to revive that by bringing in new equipment, by really stepping outside, by changing this area, making it look like Vegas, rather than having the same old, and kids really get depressed when they don't need to. Their brain is so fast, and they're such geniuses, but if their surroundings don't catch up to their mind, that's where you see the high rate of suicide. That really is it. They just need somewhere to surround their mentality.
And Mrs. Brent, let's talk about the yang to the yin. What is your definition of youth empowerment?
Well, as I believe I mentioned before, I have my daughter who is 8 and my son who's 10, who's actually lived through domestic violence. And one of the main important facets I've learned is acknowledgement. Acknowledging that the domestic violence, the abuse they went through existed. They're not, making it up, it was real. That acknowledgement comes first. And then, like Dr. Mello was saying, is get them engaged. I'm less interested, even though it is cutting edge myself, into, well, coding's important, but into, gaming and stuff like this, computers, because they're so inundated with this in schools. But as she also mentioned, is going out and learning in a holistic environment, in a natural, environment where there's a group up north where boys can go and meet wolves and have this connection with them. And by the end of the time, by the end of the program, they howl with them. The wolves and the boys bond. And I think things like that, it's beautiful, just reintroducing them.
It's like a holistic approach, like a natural approach to
It
redefining
is.
who you are as a person.
It is, and let them take control, let them learn and see who they are about, and just empower them on their way, along their way, I should say.
That makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to youth suicide, it's a great point that you brought up. The statistics on Los Angeles Times say that there are about 15 suicides by youth for every 100,000 kids, and it says that it's the highest since 1960. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. A lot of the old traditions doesn't work in 2020. You have a lot of the old school grandparents and parents, God bless their heart, they may have good intentions, but some of them don't even have emails. And you can't compare with the digital age with 1950.
Yeah.
So Barbara Morrison, actually, she's a great jazz legend. She wants to do a youth program because she's up there, but the kids are not exposed to that. And so we have to bridge the gap by having the kids know what it's like, telling stories, passing on tradition, and letting them know where they came from. And then matching that with them recreating the civil rights era, teaching history in a different way. And so we had a play called The Year of the Diamond, which was 7 stage plays, and it circled around historical figures like Susan B. Anthony, Harriet Tubman, Lewis Latimer, and it allowed these kids to learn about their history in a fun way. And if we just don't do little by little like that every day, the kid gets depressed, and that's why they feel like they're being shut out, no one's listening to them, and because we haven't engaged in them and teach them patience, that they said, you know what, you're not listening to me? Fine, I'll just kill myself. It would have never been that extreme had they been taught there is another way, there are other ways to do that, and patience is the key. Everything is so rapid fire, they get everything at the touch of their phone, that why would they want to wait?
So if anybody is thinking about committing suicide, please call a National Suicide Prevention Hotline, 1-800-273-8255, or use the crisis text line by texting to 741-741. This is not an endorsement or an implying that they're endorsing me. This is for your information only. We're going to take a break, and when we come back from break, I have an interesting question. Statistics say that children in the LGBTQ community commit suicide at a higher rate than any other child. So when we come back, I want to talk about the suicide rate in the LGBT community, and we compare that to the non-LGBT community. Be right back.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Ooh, that is going to be an elephant in the room. Talk about LGBT suicide because you don't want to be politically correct, right? You don't want to.
I know, you gotta say how you feel because people want to keep it real.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it real.
Sometimes
That's what I'm
you
saying. If you don't want me to
defend
keep it real, I will definitely tell you exactly what's going on. And
Do you want to mention that it was on the DSM before? Can I keep it that real?
yeah, well, gender dysmorphia.
Gender dysphoria.
Yeah, that's one of the main issues. But I believe.
I'll segue into it. Don't worry about it. I can
Yeah.
piss people off and then you guys can into it. I don't give a shit
Oh,
about
I'm
it.
not
pattern
good with that.
around.
I'm
All
not
right.
PC.
Yeah, I mean, suicide amongst, we do have 2 youth right now that are literally in that transgender, and so they're in that capacity of, I wouldn't say committing suicide, but they do have a lot of mental
Radiation.
trauma.
Absolutely, because they don't know who they are. I think one of the biggest things, and I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to say this in the air, one of the biggest things when it comes to the transgender community and the LGBTQ community is they want people to accept them, but they can't even accept themselves for who they are. And so when you conflict them with people, when you want people to accept you, when you can't accept yourself, then
Right.
of course that's
Yeah,
how
that's
it
a
is.
big deal. Okay, person. We're gonna say it. I'll be right behind you.
I've said it before, I give no fucks. You're an asshole, am I right?
You know, because there's a lot of energy that you have to disperse when you're being truthful like that. And when it comes to young people, I want to be as candid as I can with them, but you have to be straightforward. You know, that's the best medicine I feel. I mean, it's a good subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. There's a lot of.
All right, you guys, welcome back. We're talking about the mental health in youth with the emphasis on the LGBTQ community. So studies show that children in the LGBTQ, I don't know how children in the LGBTQ community can make that type of decision, but children in this community commit suicide as well as adults in a higher rate than any other group who commit suicide. And if you need a support group, if you experience something, you're a child in the LGBTQ community, which is absolutely weird to me, go ahead and feel free to call hotline 1-800-TLC-TEEN, 1-800-TLC-TEEN, and they will get you help 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Call it. My thing when it comes to the LGBTQ community, right? And I felt this way since Barack Obama pushed this stuff so hard. And if you like Barack Obama, you know what? This is your guy. This is your history. I like him because I was in the military and I have a choice. Don't really care for him too much. But Barack Obama pushed the LGBTQ tough. He pushed it so tough to where he made minors, children who should be focused on school, focused on academics, focused on sports, can have the option to choose if they want to be a boy or girl. Now, why this is important, I have no idea. I don't think that children should have that choice. If, God blessed you with a ding-dong, then love it. If God blessed you with the other thing, then love it. I don't think parents should be incentivizing, pushing, or forcing this gender thing on children. Now, when you turn 18, the same age you can join the military, 21, the same age you can smoke cigarettes, or the same age you can drink, then you should be able to make your option on if you want to be a boy or girl. So I think this whole thing that Democrats are pushing, Barack Obama, is totally, kind of backwards in my opinion. My issue is, if you're in the LGBTQ community, whether you're a child and your parents allow you to make that type of decision for yourself, or you're an adult, you make this decision for yourself, how can you honestly expect someone to accept you for who you want to be when you can't accept yourself for who you are? right? And I think when you have those conflicting issues, when forcing someone who's been taught, who's been brought up a certain way, to see you as the opposite gender, and they don't, you get upset. You want laws passed to force people to see you as a, said gender, and people still don't respect it. These are private decisions that you should make in your own home. If you want to be a girl, you can't be upset with somebody else for calling you a guy if you are a guy, or if you are a girl, even though you want to change your sex. That's just like you've been putting on shoes, left shoe on the left shoe, and the right shoe on the right foot for 30 years, and somebody finally told you that that's wrong. And they're telling you to swap your shoes. It doesn't fit like that, So what are you guys' thoughts on the suicide rate for children in the LGBTQ community?
Well, I believe the trauma primarily stems from sexual abuse. 95% of a lot of children that goes through transgender or have that sort of mentality is because they had been molested at one point in time as a young person. And this is actual data. As a doctor myself, I have a lot of young people who are going through gender dysphoria. And when we counsel, and we're not trying to force you to feel a certain way, we have a conversation on the root reason of why they feel that way. And that's why I say communication is very important on all aspects. Once you dig into the source of why or what started that feeling or that thought, then you can expand on it, and usually you'll come out with a solution the more you have sessions and talk. But the only way that they can really come to terms with themselves is having someone that they can counsel them. And then when that point comes, they will, at the end of that session, to find more clarity. And if they still feel a certain way, and I believe that will lessen after you conversate with them.
Okay.
All right, and it's not a bad thing to feel that way. It is what it is, and we have to address that elephant. And molestation is something that a lot of people don't even want to talk about, and that's understandable because it's traumatizing.
Yeah.
But we have to let things go, and the only way we can let it go is be realistic about what has happened and how we can move forward.
Mrs. Brand, so as you know, as well as we all know, there have been tons of reports of Hollywood and, when it comes to pedophilia, when it comes to sex trafficking, when it comes to all of these subjects, even the LGBTQ community, even with, prominent actors like Harvey Weinstein and a few others that we won't mention, sexually abusing children and women and in some cases men. What are your thoughts on that, if you don't mind answering? If you don't want to, go.
Oh no, I don't mind at all. I grew up in Hollywood, so it was something that was somewhat always apparent. You just didn't know what exactly you were looking at. And as it became exposed, I wasn't shocked at first until we started learning more about adrenochrome and the frazzle drip and everything that went much deeper. That was a conspiracy that is now full-fledged, proven among the Hollywood elite, and it just
It's out in the open.
yes, it is just vile. It's the most disgusting. It's the most disgusting thing you can ever do to children.
So Los Angeles Times came out with an article that says, since COVID-19 in Los Angeles started, the child sex crimes is going up tremendously. So I want to know what you guys' thoughts are. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, I want to know what you guys' thoughts are. And I want to, it's been cyber. It's been, totally cyber. Well, you do have those instances where, people are trying to meet up with children, but the majority of instances when it comes to child pornography, child sex trafficking and everything, they find these children online. And because of coronavirus. So I want to know, when we get back to break, when we get back from this break, what are your thoughts on this subject as well as getting our children back in school? Stay tuned, it's going to be a great conversation.
All right.
That's what they're doing right there.
Well, it's getting hot in here. It's actually pretty good.
This is the final segment, it's 4 minutes, so, let's make your thoughts quick, and then so we can be able to tell people where to find you, where to donate to your organization, cards and stuff like that.
Yeah, we have currently a cash out, but Chase Bank.
I told you what I needed.
Yeah, well, Chase Bank decided to close my account altogether.
Well, because they didn't get the
No, they got the information, sir.
the documents.
I went to, they got that. They were supposed to open the account, but Andrea Luna told me, housing is built for only certain Spanish contractors.
No, so you gotta do it outside of that. You can't do it specific. You gotta do like a regular business account. You know what I'm saying?
That's what we're trying to do. They didn't allow me to do that at all. Thank you to Combo Over Milk. So.
No, I talked to him on the phone too.
Yeah, but we had a filed case already, discrimination case already they were supposed to look into. And instead of looking into it, they just decided to close the account altogether. It makes no sense.
No, I mean they got it's certain rules and restrictions that you know we'll go through. I'll take it there. Well,
Alright,
let's shoot. Fridays are my half days. I'm taking half days now, so I can do Joe time. So
when you say half days,
yeah, I'm not working on day on Friday because I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm not in bed till like 12 o'clock in the night. So Fridays been half days to do my own shit. I'm learning forex trading and stuff and take care of you guys.
oh, you just first.
Well, not yet, but I'm about to.
Oh, well, let me know how it goes. Supposed to sign up a couple of years ago.
Really?
I don't know, was that MLM or what is that? Affiliate? I don't
No
know.
idea.
It's just not my cup of tea. But this, August 27th, 28th, 29th, we have the Fate of the Black Men Conference. It's a 3-day, it's supposed to be in Torrance, but of course, COVID. We'll be in the studio. So our speaking time, and that's why I told you I'm dressing in fraternal order and law enforcement. It'll be from 10:30 to 11:30. And so I will hopefully get the video from there. But that's the next event that's coming up.
Just shoot me the link so I can be able to chime in.
Yeah, it's
I know the 29th and the 29th and 30th I'm swamped, but I can try to make time out Zoom in from the phone or something like that. I watch.
okay.
Some of those yes and
Yeah, well, you got to be. Get involved, because right now we're not taking no for an answer when it comes to resources.
You know what? There's no such thing as no. It's always the get this or this, get that, and then they'll tell you yes. Because every no is not necessarily a no. It's like a not right now until you get something that they need. So you fulfill the requirements they care about.
There's just too much roadblock. I mean, here in this area, the leadership is absolutely atrocious. There's nowhere to go. You know, it's not even halfway decent. It's atrocious. So even if you try to
I'd
get
like
an
to get
answer,
back on.
you know, it's like crickets. The road again.
Okay, everybody, I appreciate you tuning in. I'm sitting here with Dr. Mello and Mrs. Brett from the Kingdom Awareness Foundation. So just like I mentioned in the last segment, child sex crime has been going up with LA Times, especially online crime when it comes to children. So do you think that we should get our children back in school so they don't have all this time to be stalked by predators online?
Yeah, it's overdue. And if we can do
Amid coronavirus,
Right.
get them back to school.
if we can apply the safe distancing rules, and they can always apply that in the classroom. And these kids and parents need to get back in the classrooms. This is just, it was overbearing to have a local family to do schoolwork and work full time and, you know, take care of the kids. It was a mental anguish. So that's why a lot of kids, they felt pressured. They were higher abuse, simply because people were just frustrated, not because they didn't love their family. And so school has always been a way not only to give freedom to the parents to work, but to have the child in an environment to have friends and
Predominantly safe environments. Right?
absolutely.
Mrs. Brett, what are your thoughts on internet crimes by adults and children? How do you feel about that?
It's heinous. I think that there should be more regulation on that. Unfortunately, a lot of the gaming entities and internet protocols aren't set up to regulate or to incriminate. It's been a little bit more regulated by, I believe, the FBI, if I'm not mistaken. But it's still, there's not enough constraints and regulations to bust these predators.
I don't let my children, stay on the internet that much, and if I do, I monitor everything that they do because at the end of the day, they're still children. I don't care how much, privacy or, you know, freedom their moms think they should get. I'm a dad, and I got daughters, and I have a son, and it's like, okay, let's find out what you're doing, because, you know, we had some issues with my kid, and they finally understand, oh, this is why you monitor everything. Like, yes, absolutely. Child sex crimes and child predators is prevalent. It's a thing. They used to have a show called How to Catch a Predator.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Where they follow these guys who want to meet up with kids.
They bring pizza.
Yeah, all type of
cookies.
stuff. Yeah, I'm handful of ball spots. Like, are you
Yeah.
serious? They had a TV show, and so people think it's fake. I don't know why people ignore that stuff. So,
Yeah,
you know, protect your children. Get your children off the internet. Get them off of TikTok. Child sex trafficking is a serious thing. It's on TV. Like, don't ignore this type of stuff. Dr. Mello, please tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, if they'd like to join the movement or like to volunteer, they can give us a call at 323-884-8583. They can also log into our Facebook, the Kingdom Warriors Foundation, and our mission statement is 1%. So our website is onepercentage.org, and we look for everyone to donate 1% of their resources, time, and income into building youth resources, building housing. That's a one-stop shop, and we all need to do it together. So 1% is all we need.
Miss Brent, where can we find you at?
You can find me on Facebook, same place as Dr. Mello, then also on Facebook at ABA space AB.
Okay.
And also my email, people can reach out at amberbrand@protonmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on to my show. And as you can see, we are on the USS Ronald Reagan. And as I like to say, I am done with you guys. You're deep six. Get off my ship. And please, everybody, we will be back next Saturday, same time, 6 p.m. We're going to constantly have great people on our show, great topics to talk about. We appreciate you staying tuned. JoeCollinsForCongress.com. Please go and donate. We need all your help. We have our food pantry here. Follow me on social media, Collins for Congress 43, Facebook and Instagram, and Joe Collins 43 on Twitter. I love you guys. Stay blessed. I will see you next week. Peace.
Awesome. Yes. It is a
Say
wrap.
thank you to Mike.
Huh?
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. You're the bomb.com, baby.